You ready? Here come the pain!
Broadcasting from a project studio that's more project than studio. It's Cinema Diabolica's Battle of the Band B Movies. The show that will once and for all crown an undisputed king of Britain's video nasties. And now, here's your hosts, F13 and DZ.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Cinema Diabolica. It's the Battle of the Band B Movies, maiden voyage, if you will. I'm F13.
This is DZ.
And this is a brand new show that we're doing here. We're going to be going over the Britain's Video Nasties list of 72 banned films that were deemed to be too obscene and disgusting and morally reprehensible to be allowed to be sold on video.
It's delicious.
Yeah,
it's a loophole in the system that got exploited, and it wasn't even that it was exploited. It's hilarious what the moral majority was attempting to do back in the day, the good old Light Brigade.
So what we're going to be doing is going over the films, all 72 of them, 2 at a time per episode, and watching them, rating them, and scoring them, and then putting up the scores. We'll be eliminating the films until there's only the top 10 nastiest films of all time on this list, and then at the end we will have crowned a number one nastiest of the nasty. Because I think a good question is, do all these movies really deserve to be on this list? Are they all as reprehensible as it says? And from a cursory glance, the answer is definitely no.
Oh, it's absolutely true that, there's someone here you just go, I think someone got a little out of control.
There's definitely a little insane that people get when it comes to this kind of thing. So we've got the Video Nasties list here. Let's go over a couple. Actually, you know what? Before we do any of that, I got to remember to put this. This is an important thing that we do every episode. So this happened.
Hey, dudes. This is Ugg from Louisville.
Hey,
Caught your New Year's Day show, or your New Year's closing show. We were trying to catch up. Good job.
Thank you.
Enjoyed all the films. Seen a lot of them, but some I hadn't, so thanks. And look forward to the coming year with the Video Nasties reviews, which is cool. But you guys have reviewed some of those films, I think, like The Burning was on the last episode. Not as far as I can tell, that's on that list. A couple others. I think some of the cannibal films like Ferox and Holocaust are on there.
Just put a pause on that real quick. Yeah, so DZ and I discussed this. We have actually reviewed a few of the, not many, but a few of these films we have reviewed in the past. With the exception of The Burning, I think, is the only one that was recent. These were all a long time ago, and on top of that, we're actually looking at them for a different reason now. Oh, wait, we were in the middle of a voicemail.
Looking forward to the year coming up, and hope you guys had a good holiday season. And that's it. I got to get back to this piece of shit Dark Skies movie I'm watching on
Lol at you
right now. It really looks bad. You know what? I saw that, with the Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. That thing, what a piece of junk. Jesus, that series has gone down the fucking toilet. Anyway, so after I subject myself to this and then pour bleach in my eyes, I'll be ready to use my ears, because they'll become my dominant sense, because I'll be blind.
You'll be like Daredevil.
Talk to you guys later, and have a good week.
And yourself, sir. Just like Daredevil.
Turn off Dark Skies. That movie is horrible. Oh, God, that was just such a bad film. Poorly thought out. It has to do with aliens trying to break up a family is what it came down to. It was ridiculously poor.
So we wanted to get into a little bit of a history of the Video Nasties. For those that aren't necessarily as familiar, the Wikipedia entry, because, we trust Wikipedia, says Video Nasty is a colloquial term in the United Kingdom to refer to a number of films distributed on video cassette that were criticized for their violent content by the press, social commentators, and various religious organizations. The term was popularized by the National Viewers and Listeners Association in the early 1980s. So these are video releases that were not rated by the BBFC, the British Board of Film Classification, which could have censored them or banned them or whatever because of a loophole. Because of the loophole, these movies that were just straight to video and never were released in theaters didn't get rated. So they just got, for the first time ever, there's just a direct, pipeline to get whatever filth you want to put on a tape into people's homes.
And it goes a little beyond that too. You had the BBFC who were editing certain films that were coming through that actually made it to theater, but under basically under this loophole, they could release them uncut now. In other words, the studios could actually give whatever original form to movies that were released to theaters, and to kind of bypass. Another thing that was also happening at the time, there was Britain was going through, I think, something of a recession, so people were opening up video stores because they have an opportunity now to make money off of this new industry. People who really didn't have an interest in movies necessarily, but were like, hey, this is a way to make a buck. Yeah,
they were interested in a livelihood, not necessarily movies. And for Britain, this was a bad time. There was a lot of redundancies, people being laid off. The economy was in the shitter. You've got the war in the Falklands. There's a huge cultural shift happening just overall. It was a very tumultuous time. And that's kind of like this whole thing was kind of an example of the time.
And it's actually, kind of a beautiful period where, you've got the people who are taking, who had maybe shitty day jobs just like anybody else. And it's like, well, now, I don't have this job anymore. Here's an opportunity to make money. In some cases, I'm sure that people were really pretty clever about it. You hear stories even in the States about people like, was it the Station Z documentary? Quentin Tarantino mentions that his old video store boss used to record things off of that TV station and rent them out to people. I mean, technically he's breaking the law. Definitely, but I mean... But, you get this Wild West effect when you have this new industry that opens up. VCR, we may go, oh, VHS is so quaint and everything, but it really changed a lot of things. Yeah, it made a lot of people very afraid, and it also changed up a whole lot of stuff because you were able to time shift your media for the first time ever. You could record a show, set a video, your recorder to record a show, and then watch it whenever you wanted to. And that was pretty much just the opening of the floodgates. Right. I'm actually a little surprised that we didn't see shot on video happen a little bit sooner as a result. But, you still got the studios in control of a lot of things. So it makes a lot of sense, I guess. But, what the biggest fear was, from this group was at the Vestibule of Light and Mary Whitehouse. And she was the big, kind of push for it. She was this, very influential person, older white woman. Well, we're talking Britain, in the 80s. Mm-hmm. It's all old white women back then. Yeah, diversity still taking some time. Yeah, and that's just across the board, not to fault England, but she sees a problem and she decides, hey, I'm the moral majority and I've got influence, so I'm going to. And she even admits she's never watched any of these films. And so, it creates this really interesting double standard where it's like, well, you're saying that these movies can influence our children and corrupt them, and yet you're still having to actually watch these films to see if it, to censor them. So how is it not a corrupting influence upon the adults? It's just, yeah, there's a whole lot of question. Well, I mean, it's not necessarily even unique because all throughout history, it's always kind of been the same archetype. There's always been, your raving nutters that are, screaming, the children, what about the children? Oh my God, the children. It's just what happens is when you get a particularly tumultuous time in politics, you get politicians who do not actually care about the issue, but see this as an opportunity to get a lot of these ranting and raving people on their side with a very, very
kind of divisive issue wherein you can say we have to do this. Why? Well, because of the children. What, you hate the children? You want the children to become corrupted and perverted and ruin their futures and their lives? That's what you want? And then you're forced to say, well, no, that's not what I want. Well, then why aren't you on my side? That kind of thing. It's the same thing with now. Pretty much the majority of the arguments about removing net neutrality is based on internet pedophiles and child pornography. And if you disagree with any of the Crusaders in any way, the instant is like, so you're for this kind of thing? You don't want to protect the children from predators? And it's like, well, that's an interesting straw man you've created to burn here, but that's not the issue.
Yeah, and facts just get in the way of the situation. Right. You know, they're arguing that these kind of films would have caused their children to be more violent. And it's like, well, history has borne out that that's actually not true at all. Right. And they're not continuing this argument today. So it kind of just shows you that they were really just, it's basically about control and inserting laws just to kind of confound a situation even more.
Well, it's basically about Mary Whitehouse saying, this is all filth and rotten. I don't want anyone to have access to this kind of thing. And then a bunch of politicians saying like, hey, here's a good way to get in with the moral majority. Let's, take on this. And it's even in the documentary that we watched, or one of the documentaries we watched about this, the main solicitor who introduced the law, he admitted he didn't know about the issue or really care much about it, but he accepted a bunch of support from Mary Whitehouse based on the fact that when and if he won and got in, he would introduce a bill, or whatever they call it. He would put forth a solicitation. And then when it happened, she had to remind him, hey, Piper's come a-calling. It's time for you to submit that solicitation against these movies. And he wasn't really all that interested.
Yeah, it's politics, and I know we're getting into politics, and we're, I don't know how careful we really want to be in regards to it. It's ridiculous. Just time bears out saying that none of this is necessarily true. We still see it with video games. Yes. And the only thing that they've ever actually proven about video games is that you might be still a little bit more amped up. And, they use the word aggressive in these reports. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you end up hurting someone. Right. That's not the end result. It's aggressive. Like, hey, you're pumped. It's just like after, you go on a roller coaster. Everybody's going to say, hey, roller coasters need to be banned because people are aggressive afterwards because they're so excited because, basically they're having a physiognomic response. Right. Please. That's ridiculous. Right.
Aggressive doesn't necessarily have to mean hostile.
Exactly. And, again, facts bear out saying, hey, no, what you're saying is actually not true, but they don't let that bother them. They don't let it get in the way of what they want to crusade for. Right.
Yeah. They don't let that get in the way of how they want to craft the facts to say. So back to the history here. Following a moral campaign led by Mary Whitehouse and the NVALA, local jurisdictions began to prosecute certain video releases for obscenity. To assist local authorities in identifying obscene films, the director of public prosecutions released a list of 72 films the office believed, that's an important word here, to violate the Obscene Publications Act of 1959. The list included films that had been acquitted of obscenity in certain jurisdictions or that already obtained their BBFC certifications. This subsequent revision to the list and confusion regarding what constituted obscene material led to Parliament, because here's the thing, they don't really explain this here, but the confusion with it led to cops raiding video stores and distributor warehouses, and just whatever looked obscene, they'd start snatching up bundles of movies just based on what the movie was called. Best Little Whorehouse in Paris got snatched up.
Texas.
Oh, sorry, Texas, Paris. What the fuck am I talking about? Best Little Whorehouse in Texas got snapped up.
I think you're dropping something there. It's a little Freudian slip. What do you think about Paris? You think it's just like this sexy hot box over there?
I will say Paris is full of whores. I will go out on that limb and make that statement. But yeah, like they're just snatching stuff up based on what it's called and not knowing anything about it. So they had to pass a new act.
Just to add something in there too, it isn't just that; it's also the covers. I mean, when you mentioned Driller Killer a moment ago, and the most notorious scene in that movie happens to also be the cover of the box where a person is getting a drill to the forehead, and there's blood and gore. So there's quite a few, box cover art. Basically marketing kind of shot itself in the foot in terms of the films because it oversold the promise of what's in the movie.
Right.
And if you were to go into basically a situation where you're like, okay, we're supposed to confiscate anything that's questionable, and you see, like a topless woman being crucified, or a drill through the head, or just some other horrifying depiction, you might kind of err on the side of caution and go ahead and grab those movies.
Right. And yeah, the marketing, they always want, I mean, and it goes on today. People always talk about banned in 33 countries, and that's not necessarily true, or it's a version of the truth, but people like hype. People like hype and hyperbole. That's basically what people want. So yeah, this led to Parliament passing the Video Recordings Act of 1984, which forced all video releases to appear before the BBFC for certification, because that was a loophole before. They didn't have to get certified if it wasn't a theater-run film. So the implementation of the Video Recording Act imposed a stricter code of censorship on videos, right? That was required for cinema release. Several major studios were banned on video as they fell within the scope of legislation designed to control the distribution of video nasties. And it says here that in recent years, the strict requirements have been relaxed as shown by all the films being unbanned. Numerous films once considered nasties have now obtained certification uncut or with minimal edits.
Yeah, and that's just a case of culture, period. Eventually, things change, especially since we're becoming so much more global. The internet has really changed a lot of things in terms of communication. You've got the Japanese mixing with the Middle East and getting some really interesting kind of combinations. That's why mashup is such a big thing. It's culture changes, and the more that you're introduced to other cultures, the more you get a chance to self-reflect and go, you know what? There's some things in my culture that don't make a whole lot of sense too. Right. So, and it's not so much that your morality shifts. The thing is that there's kind of a universal morality within all of us. It's like we know not to hurt other people. That's a bad thing. And, there's actually this like a whole list that just kind of becomes inherent, and we don't need to be told by someone, hey, you're a bad person because you like this. Right.
Well, do you remember when Bart Simpson was going to turn all of our children into delinquents?
Well, like a rebel without a clue?
Kind of, yeah. When The Simpsons first came out, a lot of people expressed concern and outrage over how, impudent and rebellious Bart Simpson was, and how that was not a proper role model for children. And a lot of people, tried to get that show banned. Married with Children.
I do remember that to a degree. I do remember Married with Children having some issues. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. And you look at that now with like shows like South Park and Family Guy and things that are just beyond the pale when it comes to a comparison. And it just shows our society hasn't fallen apart yet. So, I mean, we're not fucking raw chicken and worshiping the devil. Well, at least, I'm not. I don't know what you do on your Thursday nights.
Yeah, raw chicken isn't part of it. Mm-hmm. I might worship the devil on occasion. Mm-hmm. But here's the interesting thing, too, is like I've actually had, and I mentioned this to you the other night, quite a few of the things that I like to partake in has at some point come under fire by the moral majority. Right. For example, back in the 80s, Dungeons and Dragons, there was a group called BAD, Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, and there was a woman, not too unlike Mary Whitehouse, who was trying to champion that there was something morally wrong with role-playing games. Chick Tracks, he put out tons of stuff about these little pamphlets that are comic book strip form, and they're hilarious. They're the funniest things I've ever seen regarding someone's misconception about what role-playing games were.
Right, and how Dungeons and Dragons were basically like the training level for joining Satan cults.
Yeah, and since it uses magic, or since magic users are part of the game, then they're trying to break the covenant with God. It's just so ridiculous. And now it's like you actually have MMOs and pretty much the most successful video games at this point have their roots in D&D.
Right.
And now people aren't really talking about that. In fact, they just kind of go, that's quaint.
Right.
But you do see this pop up every once in a while where it's like, oh, this new thing that makes me nervous. It should make everyone else nervous. So therefore,
Right.
I will try to enforce my nervousness upon you.
Right. And that's the thing is it's always the same. Every time someone has a concern, it's always about something they don't know anything about. And if they spent any time researching it, they'd realize that it was unfounded. Moral crusadership, I believe to be one of the worst qualities of humankind. I really think that a lot of people need to mind their own fucking business and not worry about what other people are doing on many, many levels. That's not just about, entertainment, media, gaming, sexuality, orientation, identification. Like it doesn't stop with one thing. It gets into every single aspect of our lives that people want to pass judgment on.
We know when things are bad. It's almost like it kind of plays on the idea of I can't define pornography, but I know it when I see it.
Right.
To a degree, that's true, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the pornography that you're seeing is going to be that much of a corrupting influence. You probably do want to keep it out of the hands of kids, but I think more often than not, people are going to go, no, kid, you can't rent this movie.
I don't know. Free the titties, man. That's all I'm saying. Free the titties.
Free the titties, but hide the gore, right?
Mm-hmm. Free the titties, hide the gore. That's the platform that I'm running on in the next election. A vote for me, governor of the universe.
It's funny how the opposite is true in the States. It's like, no, we can't have you seeing any sort of genitalia. You need to be completely uncomfortable in your body. But you know what?
Right.
Stab away.
Yeah. Go ahead and watch that new Captain America movie with all the violence in it, no problem, but we cannot allow anyone to see two people kissing on the couch. That is not okay. We're going to cut it short there because we can sit here and pontificate all day long. That's just a general history of the video nasties. We might rejoin this topic with a few more interesting tidbits as the series goes on. And we're going to join you next week with our first pair of reviews. We've got Snuff and Terror Eyes in our first review and score episodes. So join us for that. Maybe watch Snuff and Terror Eyes. They're both available on YouTube before we watch them and rate them, and you can join in the fun. Okay,
we actually haven't covered what we're doing a little bit differently this time.
Yeah, the ratings that we're going to be doing are going to be, we're going to score the films based on 3 metrics: blood, gore, violence type. That's going to be one score number. Exploitation, porn, nudity, sexual exploitation or overt sexual scenes of an overt sexual nature will be the next scoring number, and then the third will be kind of what's called the nasty number, and that's going to be just overall where about from 1 to 10, where are you going to put this film as far as how far it goes with violence, with sexual exploitation, with cruelty, that kind of thing.
Basically, what we're left behind with and how it made us feel.
Right, basically, from 1 to 10.
Yeah, and so we're going to be counting like the number of times. Oh, there's a nipple shot. That's 1.
He cut off his ear. That's one tag. Oh, he cut off a penis. That's another tag. Oh, he's taking a mouthful of flesh out of her tit. That's.
Wait, what happens if they bite off a nipple or they bite off a genitalia?
That's just it's a scene of violence. It gets 1 strike.
Okay.
Or 1 tally mark, as it were. I don't want to get too much into doing it based on opinion. It's just, factually, there were 45 scenes of violence in this film, that kind of thing.
That'll be interesting to note, too. It's like this one had 121 points of violence. Jeez.
Well,
maybe
basically,
that's why it was banned.
Yeah, basically, the idea where I got this from was Joe Bob Briggs and the way he used to score movies when he would put them on his show. And he would say stuff like, this movie had 45 breasts, 15 naked asses, it had gun fu, kung fu, boob fu, and he just, would kind of run down all the different things you were going to get from the film.
Oh, there needs to be a movie with boob foo.
Mm-hmm, boob foo. The listeners, if you know of a movie that has a woman beating people up with her breasticles, let us know about it, because that's a Cinema Diabolica thing that needs to be on the show.
We will make a special episode just for Boob Foo.
A Boob Foo. And you can be on the show with us.
Ooh.
Talking about Boob Foo.
If you can find it, that's intriguing. That means you guys should really need to hunt.
It might never actually make it.
And call in or contact us, call in, email, blah blah blah, in regards to your take on the video nasties, because I'm sure being cult cinema fans, we all have tons of opinion on it.
We definitely do. And if you're going to buy any of the movies that we review, use our affiliate link in the fucking show notes, and put a little love this way. Send things. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Do we have that?
No, but I'm going to figure it out before I post the first review show. I'll figure something out. It might just be like a link to Amazon with a smiley face. I don't know, something. But I'll make it happen. And also, so we're also, the shows are going to be on YouTube. So if you use the YouTube, subscribe, hit like, it helps a whole lot. So that's your Cinema Diabolica episode 1 for the Battle of the Band B movies. Thank you for joining us. I'm F13.
This is DZ.
Good night.
And have a pleasant tomorrow.